Record. Hello. For first-time listeners, I'll say that next generation shell, or in short NGS, is a modern programming language for DevOps. You are now watching a weekly meeting. Weekly meetings are about progress updates and planned work for the near future. I am Ilya Sher, the author of the project. Okay, so this week, due to personal reasons, there was not much progress, like roughly zero. But I was thinking about NGS, and I wrote some of these things down. And my thoughts were primarily focused on the UI because it's coming in the near future. Let me close my door because my cat is screaming. Okay, so in order to kind of dive into my thoughts about the UI, I think let's provide some context about previous thinking of the UI in NGS and in other shells. So let's talk for a moment about other shells, how the CLI is done today. Well, typically you type a command in and then you get your dump of text on your screen. So there are several issues with this process. First, the output is mixed. You can get standard output and standard error. It's also mixed on another dimension when you can have output from different processes. And a third issue, the output is not bound. So you can get like 10,000 lines on your screen, which is not really processable by any human. So it's not very, let's say, user experience friendly. And the fourth issue with current situation is that whatever you have on the screen is not actually interactive. Sorry, cat. Okay, now he can scream inside. Okay, so for example, if you do like EC2 list instances with AWS, and you have the list of the instances on your screen, and next command which deals with EC2 instance will not be completing the instance ID from your screen because there is no such even concept that to access what's on your screen. So it will be some other type of completion, maybe from the global list or whatever is fetched from the API or whatever. It's never about interaction really with what's actually on the screen. So due to these limitations, my previous thinking about the UI in NGS was as follows. The interaction goes like this. You type command, and as the result of that command is a widget on your screen. The widget is interactive, of course. It's bound in the amount of text that you can display because there's no reason to display 10,000 lines to a human. It's like, it doesn't do any good. And pretty much all the issues are solved, which brings us to other issues, but we'll talk about them in another time. So the previous thinking was you type a command, you have a widget, you interact with the widget. The result of that interaction is new command, which is textual, and it is executed as if you typed the command, and in this manner you get a history and all the rest of the goodies which come with a textual representation of your operations, like copy paste, send to a friend, whatever, history, stuff like that. So what is new in my thinking about the UI? I would say it's the concept of the timeline. So what you have now, let's take a look at bash history, for example. What do you have in there? You have commands, and if you have specifically configured, you will have timestamps of when these commands occurred. So you will have like notoriously minimal amount of context, actually zero context about any of this. So it will not help you, for example, if you have like production issue, looking back at bash history will not help you much. It will help you just a bit. Why is that? Because you don't have the output of the commands. You don't have exit statuses of the commands. You don't have any environment variables which were involved in the command. So you don't know sometimes the values which were substituted. You don't know pretty much anything except for the command. So this is notoriously little context. So that's why the bash history is very limited in its usefulness. So let's take for a moment and generalize the concept of history. Okay, first of all, history doesn't. Let's get rid of the constraint that it's about the past. Okay, because some events are actually very interesting and they are planned to be in the future. For example, if you work on your system and you have planned downtime, wouldn't it be convenient to actually see the planned downtime on your screen and actually how much you're approaching that, how much time you have left? I think it's very useful to have future events in the timeline. Another thing that these events, I'm not sure how to actually call them, these items in the timeline, let's call them events for now, they could be of different types. Well, it could be a command that you typed. It also could be maybe your comment or other things. So I would like to share my screen and show the wiki page where I took my notes, and we'll see which types of events, roughly we can start with. Share screen. Timeline design. Yes. Okay. Okay. So yeah. Going a bit back, take bash history and generalize this like a lot on many different dimensions. So which events we could potentially have on the timeline? Well, when you run a program, it started, it output something, it progressed. Maybe it has like, let's say it works on 10 gigabytes file, and then you want to see some progress. So from time to time, you'll have progress events maybe, or maybe some log, and then the command finishes, and then you have like exit code in there. Other things you would like to have are actually notes. So let's say you have like emergency now and you work on the production, and now it's down and you're in the middle of something, and now you want to take a note because there's something important that you want to remember, after all of this is finished, and you do post-mortem and you want to remember something, and you don't want to have like 10 separate windows for all of this. You want all of it to be on the same timeline. I think it would be convenient. The events could come actually from different sources, from example, from monitoring systems. So let's say you started, I don't know, deploying new EC2 instances. Why, for example, you wouldn't see, health checks from the perspective of load balancer, something like that. Also useful. And I think it's very useful to have all of these events on the same timeline, on the same screen, while they are ordered by time. Metrics, for example, annotation. Annotation is a kind of a comment which you write about existing event. Scheduled events we already discussed. Planned commands to run. So I know many companies are using things which are called playbooks or run books or whatever. It's a bunch of commands which need to be executed as part of handling something, or it's just like kind of logical unit of commands together. So we can support that. And, if you plan to do something in the future, if you kind of have a ready-made playbook for that, you can have it on your timeline. And then when the time arrives, you just see the commands that you just press enter, to execute each one of them. Assigning some task to a user can also be on the same timeline. So, for example, if there are two people which are working now on bringing production up again, they can maybe assign who will run each command, because they have more specialization. Maybe database will be run by DB admin and database commands, but they're still part of the same timeline, at least visually. Synthetic events. let's say you did the cd into a directory, and now NGS detected you have .env file over there. Now it started using the environment variables from that file. So that could also be an event on the timeline. Now let's jump into sharing. So let's say we have, as we told before, we have like two people working on a problem. So they might have two separate timelines, but they are working on the same issue. So there should be an option when you share your timeline so that other person can see two timelines on the same screen, on the same axis of time. So if I'm working on something, I do want to know what you are doing on the same machine or on the same system. Yeah, all the rest is less important. So the main thing, many different types of events on the same timeline, maybe from different people. So that was my thinking. I'm actually done with my updates. So if Zev, you want to ask something, it's a good time, or say something, also good. If not, also good.
Yeah, no. So Ricardo showed the Python notebook integration last week, which to me solves a lot of the issues, especially about history and collaboration that you're describing now. And it's sort of become also the standard of I think of many different DevOps teams and certainly data operations team, and sort of become a way how people collaborate on these types of scripty I guess languages and environments. So what are your thoughts? And to me, right, it seems particularly kind of interesting with NGS because it potentially allows me access and exchange of information between NGS and Python. So what are your thoughts on continuous support for that, and where do you see that fitting in, and how do you see that compared to maybe a terminal window?
Well, a terminal window is a complete fuck up. So let's maybe compare to the envisioned UI. Would that be a fair comparison?
Yeah.
So what I was thinking is actually need to go over again. I think there's like there are a couple of things which are bothering me in notebooks. Like, for example, you cannot recreate whatever you did many times because there are some variables which are set, and then you play with it, and then you change previous steps, and then it's complete mess, and you cannot recreate whatever you did. This must not happen in the shell. In the shell, you need to be able to scroll back in time and see what exactly happened. So, for example, any widget which could actually change on the screen will keep its own history. So when you have this, maybe even a slider back in time, you must be able to reproduce the picture that you had at particular time.
Well, but I mean, it's obviously right affecting resources that are outside of that terminal, right? So I think that's
yes, but at least you will have the record of how you have observed these resources and what did you do to these resources, as opposed to, let's say, a cell in notebook which you can edit and you will never have the previous content of that cell anywhere.
Okay. So you're talking about the change history to that.
Yeah.
Which is of course similar to change history of a file which doesn't exist, right? You have source control.
Yeah. So if are you talking about the notebooks files?
Well, I mean, just text file, right? If I edit it, right, and I don't keep changes, I don't know, use Git, I'm gonna lose that history.
Yes.
So notebook is kind of like that.
Yes, except that even if you put notebook into a file and you commit, it will be notoriously hard to do anything with this.
Okay.
Because it's all JSON.
So you're saying
and,
so keeping tracking. So wouldn't that mean that there should be just a version control for notebook? I mean,
that would be good, and
And by the way, I don't
And
know if they have that or not. I don't know if they have that or
I
not. I
didn't
would
see
assume that
it.
some. I mean, maybe not in Jupyter, but maybe in the commercial. I mean, I don't know. I've never asked myself that question.
What I need to do actually is to dig more into notebooks and to see whether the differences between what I envision and notebooks are reconcilable or not. Right now, I think they're probably not, but I need to check again. What other things that I have noticed that this vision for the UI is somewhat close to what they call chat ops today, right? That you have your chat and the commands in the same place. Well, the main issue, well, not the main, the first issue that I've seen with that is that all these bots are running with what? With their own permissions. And now you need to like complete setup of what they can and cannot do, but depending on the user which called the bot.
And
And
it's a whole other permissioning scheme.
Yeah. And with the NGS, you will be using your own credentials. And when you share your timeline, that will be shared without the credentials. So they will be able to see what you did, but they will not have the permissions to like redo what you did.
Yeah, so that's really like a DevOpsy feature. That's like a very good feature.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually I think is the first feature in NGS, which is really domain, which is really DevOpsy.
What, the sharing of timeline?
No, sharing of timeline and the specific handling of credentials, right? Because this is not because DevOps people typically have elevated credentials, and so the sensitivity there is very clear.
Yeah,
as perhaps maybe opposed to just just a normal programming language where you say, look, I don't handle that. That's not something
Well, and here you
for
do.
example, where in the notebook set it however you want to set it, and that's it. And so what is the chat? I haven't heard about this chat. I mean, I've heard of chatbots. I haven't heard of chatbots before DevOps.
Chat ops. So the main idea is, you want to communicate while you're working on stuff, but you also want to see the commands that everybody runs. So they have kind of, let's say, Slack, and there are several bots, or maybe one bot connected to Slack. And then when you want to issue a command, you talk to this bot, so that bot will execute the command. And I understand that, well, at least some of the times, these commands are actually very limited. It's not even a shell. It's something like pre-programmed bots, no pre-programmed commands.
Yeah, what's up, what's down.
Maybe. Yeah, I think that maybe some of the bots are actually allowing to run like shell commands. And the next thought that I had, okay, so we have this UI. Why wouldn't you, for example, combine it with Bash, right? Why do you need to have NGS for that? And while I don't have like really clear picture, but it sounds to me that you will very soon run into a problem that Bash actually doesn't support structured data, and all this UI is about structured data. So there will be some mismatch over there. Yeah, because this was like kind of obvious question to ask. Okay, now you have this great UI, why not Bash, right? And yes, I will need to review notebooks again, because I never get actually very deep into that. I have like some shallow understanding of what's going on. I seen that, I worked with it, but not much. Yeah, so that's from my side, the timeline concept. Actually, I was actually thinking how to call this properly. I think timeline is actually okay for a name. Maybe we can find something better. Yeah, no, first thing about the credentials, I was thinking, maybe there will be a server which runs a shell, and then you run these commands on that. But then, okay, then you SSH to the server, and then what? Okay, you have now the permissions issue, or even if it's browser-based, let's say UI, which I think, yeah, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on interface to Python in general? A deeper interface to Python?
Deeper interface, like what, for example?
Like being able to execute NGS from within Python code.
Well, you can run it as external process. Now let's
maybe but then I have to parse it. Right. So I want to pass variables, right, or arguments in almost as native, right? Because what's the issue, right? Like for me, right? A lot of times there are things in Python that are just simply not existing in NGS. right? Because of the community support of, vast amount of libraries and, pandas
Yeah,
and whatever,
sure.
right?
Yes.
Right. But then there are things in NGS that I like. Okay. I want to use kind of both.
Yeah. So the first question would be, what would be kind of the main language, which would be like the wrapper, the shell?
No,
Not sure.
I
And then,
think that's by the way, it's not one thing, right? That I think is a key feature of NGS and notebooks is the ability to mix and match that.
well, actually, yeah, well, we can get some functionality by providing very small, simple glue layer, which will be just able to convert the data. So you run NGS, you get some data back. This data back would be converted to Python data structures. And on the other way, when you pass the data from Python to NGS, this will be converted.
Right, like map, dictionary.
Yes. These guys. Next question would be, what do you do with objects? But that's maybe for later. It actually reminds me very much of my project that I already did when it was around 2000 sometime. I took two languages. One of them was PHP because of the amount of libraries, and another one of them was Lisp because of the strength of the language itself. And I did exactly this: small wrappers, which would be able to convert the data structures in both directions, and then you just call a function, and it converts the data on the way there, it converts on the data on the way back. Well, that project was a toy project that didn't actually went anywhere. But the idea, I think, while it's not like superb integration, it gives you quite a bit. Yeah, this is maybe something that you should actually think about.
Well, I mean, to me, right, it's like kind of, there is potentially two directions you can take, right? One is like more of a DevOpsy direction, like, handling of chatbots and handling of credentials and stuff like that. The issue with, right, it will have a lot of value for some people and have zero value for other people because maybe they work differently, right? So it's very attached to the very work that you do, right? How you deploy, how your pipeline is set up, where the boundaries of this newly created role in organizations, called DevOps are. How is the DevOps department set up? Is that per team? Is it global? Is it, how does that work, right? And and I feel, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, right? But there's a lot of variability in how people do that, right? There is the way that we do that, right? But then imagine other people do it in a completely different way. And so then your tooling has to kind of match what they do, right? And if they don't, then if they, and then people evolve from whatever, legacy they had, and, whatever, right? And their problems are very specific to their very specific way, how they're, it could be that even they are in AWS or, in one of the, in one of the clouds, but the way that they use it is, maybe completely different, right? So that's like one thing.
Yeah, but on the other
Another
hand,
thing,
yeah, we can maybe probably guess, that if you take a look at typical bash script, right, it, very many times it starts with, defining log function, defining error function, and all that stuff. So that there maybe we can factor out some very, very, very common things that like many teams need, right? But then, yeah, it's a hard decision what to include actually. Yeah, I agree on that.
It is, because of the variability of how people use this these different services.
Maybe we should talk to more people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to find this, great generalization of, hey, everybody. It's not like you're building C, that everybody takes code and runs it through GCC and then links it, right? And then, they have exit and then they package that exit. Right? Like people really use these services in different ways. and how they fan out, is all this typical, DevOps, where they fan out. Do they fan out like this? Do they fan out like that? And that's actually what determines the automation that they need. And I think as many organizations as there are that, have any success or any traction, that's as many methodologies you're going to find.
Yeah. Okay, Zev, let's maybe try to wrap this up because half an hour, that's, I think maybe people will be like dozing off.
But so to me, right, there is like a real kind of fork in the road in terms of development. Do you offer more specific tooling that are DevOps driven and try to guess what people are going to need, or do you need more, one more of a programming language features, right?
I would think that this is DevOpsy things, because from the programming language perspective, it's an okay-ish language with maybe a couple other features. It will be okay language. I mean, not much worse than others. Yeah, I would like to focus on the DevOpsy things.
So building,
especially the UI. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the intention from the beginning. It did not change. I think that the space of the interactive shells, I think it's completely horrible shit, what we have today. And I would like to fix that. What is interesting is actually the alternative shells, which are modern shells, are also kind of ignoring this user experience problem almost completely. Yeah, they look better. They have like maybe better completion. The completion looks better, but the interactivity of what's on the screen, no, nobody does that.
Well,
I didn't see anything.
And then there is my favorite topic, of dumping output of an external process into your terminal.
Yeah, as I mentioned, unbound, mixed, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess I'll stop recording. Okay, so I'll thank everybody who might be watching this at some point in the future. See you guys. Bye-bye.